The cafeteria aboard the Celestial Harmony had served 17 different species for the better part of a decade without incident. Chef Valentina Rodriguez prided herself on that record. She could prepare anything from Xanthari crystallized nutrients to Bulvaxian methane-infused broths. Her kitchen was a testament to interspecies cooperation, a place where biology took a back seat to culinary excellence. Then the Krell delegation arrived. The Krell were apex predators from a death world that made Earth look like a resort planet. 8 feet tall, covered in obsidian scales, with teeth that could shear through titanium plating, they were the galaxy's most feared warriors. When Ambassador Krell Thax announced he'd be bringing his offspring to the station, every species with a functioning survival instinct suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. Everyone except Valentina. "They're just kids," she'd told Oscar Chen, the station's diplomatic liaison, when he'd nervously delivered the news. "How bad could they be?" Oscar had pulled up a holographic display showing Krell cubs in their natural habitat. The footage showed them casually dismembering prey twice their size, their needle-sharp teeth flashing in the alien sunlight. "That bad," Oscar had said quietly. Valentina had simply shrugged. "I've handled worse. Remember when those Xanthari diplomats complained the food was insufficiently angular? I made them geometric soup. I can handle some kids." The day the Krell cubs arrived, the cafeteria was eerily empty. Even the usually fearless Bulvaxians had opted for meal delivery. Only Oscar remained, partly out of duty, and partly because he'd developed an unfortunate habit of being wherever Valentina was, even when common sense suggested otherwise. The cubs entered like a force of nature. There were 5 of them, ranging from what appeared to be 6 to 12 in human years. Their scales gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and their eyes, those predatory, calculating eyes, swept the room with the precision of trained killers. The smallest one, barely 3 feet tall, approached the counter first. Its tail swished with barely contained energy, and its claws clicked against the floor with each step. "Food," it growled in heavily accented galactic common. "Hungry." Valentina leaned over the counter, meeting those dangerous eyes with her own calm gaze. Behind her, Oscar made a strangled sound that might have been a suppressed prayer. "What would you like, sweetheart?" Valentina asked. The cub's head tilted in confusion. No one had ever called it sweetheart before. In Krell culture, cubs were addressed as small warrior or future deathbringer. This human female was either incredibly brave or magnificently stupid. "Meat," the cub finally responded. "Raw, still moving preferable." Valentina nodded thoughtfully. "How about I make you something special? Trust me." Trust was not a word often associated with Krell cubs and strangers, but something in the human chef's tone made the small predator pause. It nodded slowly. Valentina disappeared into her kitchen. Oscar heard the sounds of frantic activity, chopping, searing, the hiss of something hitting a hot surface. The other cubs had gathered now, forming a semicircle around the counter like a pack of miniature dragons. 15 minutes later, Valentina emerged with 5 plates. "Terran-style sliders," she announced, setting them down. "Beef, that's meat from Earth cattle, cooked rare. So rare it's basically just been introduced to the concept of heat. Topped with a spicy pepper sauce that'll remind you of the thrill of the hunt, and served on a bun that won't get in your way." The cubs stared at the plates, then at Valentina, then back at the plates. The smallest cub picked up a slider with surprising delicacy and bit down. Its eyes widened. A rumbling sound emerged from its chest, not a growl, but something softer. Contentment. Within seconds, all 5 cubs were devouring their meals with an enthusiasm that would have been terrifying if it weren't so endearing. Blood-red juice dripped down their chins. They growled and snapped at each other playfully, as cubs do, but their attention remained fixed on the food. Ambassador Krell entered just as his offspring were finishing their meals. The massive warrior surveyed the scene, his cubs, alive and apparently happy, and the human chef who stood watching them with her arms crossed and a satisfied smile on her face. "What?" the ambassador rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "Have you done to my children?" Valentina raised an eyebrow. "Fed them lunch. They were hungry." The ambassador approached the counter. His offspring, sated and content, had curled up in various corners of the cafeteria like drowsy puppies. The smallest one was actually purring. "No species has ever successfully fed Krell cubs without incident," Krell said carefully. "They are particular about their food, violent when disappointed." "They're kids," Valentina replied simply. "Kids get hangry. You just gotta know what they need." Oscar, who had been edging toward the exit throughout this entire exchange, found himself speaking up. "She has a point. Human parents deal with picky eaters all the time. It's like a survival skill we developed." The ambassador considered this. His species had conquered 12 star systems through military might alone. They had never retreated from battle, never shown weakness. But perhaps there were forms of strength they had overlooked. "You will teach me this technique," Krell stated. It wasn't a request. Valentina grinned. "Sure, but first let me guess. You haven't eaten either?" An hour later, word had spread throughout the station. The Krell cubs had been tamed. The human chef had achieved the impossible. Species that had been hiding in their quarters began to cautiously venture back to the cafeteria. They found a strange sight. Ambassador Krell, the galaxy's most feared warrior, sitting at a table with his cubs, all of them working their way through plates of what Valentina had dubbed the Tiny Terror menu, a selection of dishes specifically designed for young predators with developing tastes and aggressive tendencies. Oscar stood beside Valentina at the kitchen window, watching the scene unfold. "You know this is going to become a thing, right?" he said. "Every species in the galaxy with difficult kids is going to want your expertise." Valentina shrugged, already making notes for expanding her menu. "Good. Means more business. Besides, kids are kids, no matter how many teeth they have." The smallest Krell cub had wandered over to the counter, its belly full and its eyes drowsy. It looked up at Valentina with something that might have been affection. "Food bringer," it chirped. "You are adequate." From a Krell, this was the highest praise. Valentina reached down and, in a moment of either brilliance or madness, gently patted the cub's head between its horns. The creature's eyes widened in surprise, then slowly closed. It began to purr louder. Oscar watched in amazement as the most dangerous juvenile predator in the known galaxy leaned into the human chef's touch, like a cat seeking attention. "Humans," Ambassador Krell observed, his tone carrying what might have been respect. "You are stranger than our legends suggested." Valentina smiled. "We're full of surprises. Now, who wants dessert?" The cubs' heads snapped up in unison, their predatory attention suddenly laser-focused on the chef. "What?" the smallest one asked carefully. "Is dessert?" Valentina's grin widened. "Oh, you're about to find out why humans are really dangerous." She disappeared into her kitchen, leaving behind a cafeteria full of apex predators about to discover the devastating power of chocolate cake.